Mon Ami is actually a event planning firm specializing in social events, so primarily weddings, anniversaries, mitzvahs, kind of benchmark and landmark occasions in a family's life. So I do the fun events. I don't usually do corporate events. It has happened on occasion in my tenure, but primarily I do the fun parties. Um, I have worked all over the world. I have planned events in very, very cool places, very epic places, uh, and have gotten to meet really, really neat people, have unbelievable clientele, and worked with budgets that are have a lot of zeros to them. I will be honest about that. So when COVID hit, the world and the event community completely stopped. I have kind of four components I want to talk to you guys about, and I'll touch on them. I would love your cameras to be on because if you have a question, you can completely interject. It might actually make the flow of the conversation work well. I don't want to talk at you. I would love to talk with you. And I actually teach two courses, one at IU and one at IUPUI. And historically, I alternate semesters. There have been years that I've taught them both at the same time. And there's been, based on people who may have been retiring or on maternity leave, there's actually been times I've taught other classes as well. So that's the reason I might have taught more than one class at the same time. But historically, I teach a class called Weddings as a Business. And I have, in the past, taught it in the fall at IUPUI, and then I teach the same class in the spring in Bloomington. And most of the time, I'll get hospitality type majors, but I also get a lot of business majors who might be studying marketing or public relations, depending on which university you're at. That might be a communications major or it might be a business major. And I get those students because they realize how frequently they are working with events, and sometimes that's social events. And so I'll get those students and we will talk about weddings as a whole. So I kind of have four components that we'll talk about. How I got my start, what owning a business in the wedding industry actually entails, especially in the COVID world, what owning a women-owned business specifically is, especially in my industry because it is so female-dominated, and things you need to focus on in your time in school. I actually have a college student. I have a freshman at Alabama, Roll Tide, and I have a junior in high school. So she's in the college hunting herself. And so I have seen a million college visits. I have seen everything from tiny little schools to schools as big and bigger than IU. So I can certainly tell you how different schools recruit and what they're looking at and what classes business majors specifically should be looking at, and people in my degree looked at, and what I look for in candidates when I hire them, because I obviously have employees because I own two companies. So how did I get my start? My degree is actually in sports marketing and management. I took a ton of business classes. I obviously took sports classes, and I didn't take any hospitality classes. But in a weird meandering way, I actually teach in the degree that I teach in the department where my degree where I teach. Does that make sense? Did that come out right? Like that's how IU lines it up. So they're all like, "You are using your degree." I'm like, no, not so much. It's just how it has now, how they've realigned all departments. I actually am teaching kids from the actual department because that's how it's all lined up now. But that's because hospitality and event management literally didn't exist back then. It is that new of a field. It is that it has blossomed that much. It has exploded that much. We'd have to go back in the annals of time. I don't think anybody was offering it in 1997. You can all do the math and figure out how old I am. But I truly don't think it existed. When I graduated with a sports marketing management degree, there were only 37 schools in the country that offered it. They were all either teeny tiny or enormous. And I always thought, well, how can you teach me about professional sports if you don't really have a sports program? So I only looked at huge schools. For me, that's what made sense. So obviously sports marketing management is kind of everywhere now. And the same has actually happened with event management as well. Now it's everywhere. There are 5 universities in our state that offer it, and one of them is not Purdue, yet they are known for a great hospitality program and hotel program, but they don't have a good event management program. And so when I, as a business owner, actually see that resume come through from Purdue, I disregard it completely. And I will tell students that every day of the week. At like the first day of class, I'm like, well, your degree is already better because it's from here. Not because I went here, but because I know the education's already better. The Purdue kids, though, will crush an IU student in hotel management. Their hotel program is much, much better than IU's. So it depends on where they want to go, because they have a much better hotel program than IU, but they don't have an event management program at all. So what you want to study, you have to know going in, but they don't have an event management program. But their event management program at IU is far superior than Purdue's because it doesn't exist, and it is the best one in the state. I do think IUPUI's is slightly better than IU Bloomington's, to be honest. And I know they sound very similar, but there are slight differences between IUPUI's and IU Bloomington's. So that said, I went off and I worked at Walt Disney World. Yes, it's magical. It is everything you want it to be. I did go work for the mouse. It is surreal to me to now explain to you that at the time that I worked there, it was, and until March of 2020, it was the largest single employer in one place in the world. It is not the largest company in the world, to be clear, but Walt Disney World itself was the largest single employer in the world. They have now furloughed or completely laid off more than so many employees, so many cast members, they call them, that it's equal to half the employees that worked there at the time that I did. Does that make sense? So 1 out of every 2 people that I would have worked with are completely gone. And there are people that I worked with who are still there. And there are people that I work with who would have still been there, but are gone. So there are people who would have been there for more than 25 years that are gone. So the people that they laid off have nothing to do with longevity. It just truly has to do with, do they need that role anymore? And they're gone. So there are people who worked there for 3 years that still work there. There are people who worked there for 26 years that are gone. And they, in October, will celebrate their 50th anniversary on October 1st. And obviously you have cast members who've been there more than 40 years, and some cast members kept that seniority, and there are cast members who have lost their job. So my first job right out was I went to work for Disney. I did not initially work for events. I can, to this day, I can say that I've never planned a wedding at Disney. It's a weird bucket list thing. I don't actually want to work for Disney and work at Fairy Tale Weddings. I know people who do. I actually know the person who founded Fairy Tale Weddings. She's a very good friend of mine, and she has asked me, and I'm like, nope, don't want to do it. My career is at a point that I find that too structured for me. But do I want to plan a wedding at Disney? Yes, but I don't want to work for Fairy Tale. I've worked with Mouse. I've done that. I would go back and work for Disney. I just wouldn't work for Fairy Tale. I know I can actually push those creative boundaries more than Fairy Tale would allow me to do. But I would love to go do a singular wedding with like $1 million budget. Sure, I would do that in a minute. I do have many students who do work for Disney. I have several students who were laid off in April. And I do have a student who was a student of mine in Bloomington on her first day of class. I looked around the room and I said, I will be able to tell you by the end of the semester which several of you should go work for the Mouse. And after class, it was the first day. I looked at Katie and I said, you need to go work for Disney. I knew on the first day of class. She still works there. She has climbed her way up. She worked events at Contemporary. She worked at events at where I wrote the sports. She climbed her way up, and she is the director of 50-year marketing. So her job is the 50th birthday party. That is her job. She admits the job she had last year, which was run Disney. She literally planned all the events for Disney Run. she would have been furloughed had she not gotten the promotion to the director of 50-year celebration. So she called me and she said, if I hadn't gotten the promotion that you helped me get, I would be unemployed today. So literally on that, I was like, okay, I just bought my tickets. We're going to Disney World for the 50th birthday. So and her birthday is October 1st. So I always told her she was born for the job. So I will be in the park on her 50th birthday to celebrate Katie's birthday and to celebrate with her success, to be an event planner at Disney. So I worked for Disney, and then ultimately I came back to Indiana and worked my way through catering, worked for Wolfgang Puck. He is an incredible boss. He taught me a lot, and ultimately opened my own firm. I think that you need to have a ton of business classes. People ask me all the time, like, what attributes do you have to open a successful company or to run your company? And when they see events I do, and I will ultimately show you guys a video, they think, oh my gosh, it's so creative, it's so different, or you must have limitless budgets, or you must find inspiration at cool places. Sure, I guess. But I always say, and I think actually this is really fitting now because you're watching the change in administration in the presidency. A president is only so good. It's their cabinet and the people that they surround themselves with. And this is true for any CEO. Their board of directors or the president and their cabinet is really who makes them. So I, as an event planner, theoretically, I'm the president, right? So my board of directors is my florist, my photographer, the production team. Production is the term for AV providers and lighting companies, those people. My graphic designer, the musicians and entertainment, the caterer, the wait staff, all of those people are each, if you think about it, they are different members of the cabinet or the board of directors. So all of those people help make me, the event planner, look fantastic. So it's the same as if it was the president. The members of the cabinet make the president look good because he's picked the best person for the job. So the same is true with an event planner. You have to pick the very best person for that job, for that client. And if you are ultimately the president of a company, you're going to pick the best person to be your CFO, your HR director, your chief OO. Like, you're going to pick the best person for each of those roles. I do the same thing for each client. I'm like, who is the best florist for this client? Who is the best photographer for this client? Who's the best filmmaker for this client? So in every single event, I'm picking their best cabinet, their best board of directors. And when you're running a company, you have to do the exact same thing. So obviously I have my cabinet for each client, and I have my cabinet for my company. I have my accountant, I have my lawyer, I have my graphic designer, I have all of those things. So people constantly say, you must be so creative, you must have great ideas. I hope I do, but I actually also work so intrinsically with my cabinet, with those people who make me look good. But I hope I make them look good because we work together so tightly. So the reason it works is because I took an accounting class, marketing, legal liability class, like risk management classes. I sit with my lawyer every year and we go through everything. And he's like, okay, your contract looks good, but what do we need to change based on the things that happened in the last year that could affect your years forward? Obviously with COVID, that contract's getting a big review. But most years, contracts don't need big overhauls because most years, not a lot changes. You might just need a little refresh. But most of the time, you don't have to have a big conversation with your lawyer, but you might just need a little touch up, just something. But some years, something could need to be refreshed. Like there might need to be a harassment clause that happened, something happened, and you might need to add a harassment clause forevermore into your contract. Or you're all about my kids' ages. So when you would have been in about middle school, there was a big windstorm that went through our state fair in Indiana. and the stage collapsed and 7 people horribly died. And if you remember that, that forever changed our event industry, forever. And so if you are ever dealing with events, you'll see a lot of language in contracts that have to do with that, risk management contracts. And so obviously right after that happened, it happened in August, contracts were changed immediately. And so obviously I had to sit down with my lawyers and change all my contracts, because anything to do with outdoor events or tenting would forever change my contracts. So to this day, however many years later, all my contracts that deal with tenting, I have to deal with that risk management section. So if I had never taken my risk management class in college, that would have had nothing to do with my career, but it was actually one of my favorite classes. So make sure you take a risk management class. Make sure you take your accounting class. I know it sounds like fancy math, but accounting is the one that's going to save you. Make sure you take a marketing class, a public relations class, a good writing class. Like those are the ones that are going to get you through, because there's always someone more creative than you. You can learn from them. There's always a graphic designer who can help you. But you need to know accounting. You need to know the basic laws. You need to know basic marketing skills. Because if you don't, you're never going to be able to launch your company, ever. You're just never going to make it. I've seen some of the most creative, most mind-blowingly talented people, but they can't run a business. They literally can't run a business, or they get audited and they're done. Obviously, you need an accountant to hire because they have their accounting certifications, but you've got to be able to function on a day-to-day business, so that when it's time to hand over your P&Ls and make your accountant do your taxes, you're not just handing them a shoebox and they're like, good luck, have fun with that. So that's how you stay in business for 20 years. That's how you can do it successfully. So, and you're also taking the class in college when it's not costing you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go back later and try to learn. Take it as a minor if you need. Well, you guys could be taking it as a major. In my case, it was a minor. So that's what you should do. COVID obviously changed things horribly, dramatically in my industry specifically. I was on the phone with the mother of the bride when the president at the time announced that he was shutting down all events to 10 people or less. I don't think people really remember that happened. It seems like eons ago, and it was 10 months ago, but he did. And, she was having her wedding that weekend. So it was the event world just stopped. And so did all the jobs, everything. We had to change all of our protocols, how we did everything. And initially, our governor did a fairly good job of keeping people safe. But once he reopened, events did too. Ohio, Illinois, and Kentucky did not reopen. And initially, when word got out that Indiana was having events, people actually came to Indiana to have events. That sounds great on paper until people get sick, really sick. And there's a weird ethical line that a lot of people had to face as a business owner and as a it was very hard to be in our industry. You were like, okay, do I make the money, or do I potentially put my family, myself, my staff, other people at risk to take on a new client? If it was somebody that you were already hired to do, I think a lot of people felt more okay with that. But there were places that were like, no, I'm not taking on this client. They just had no problem saying no. But the ones that they were already contractually bound to, they just figured out the best possible way to take that client. there were a lot of venues that were like, no, I'm not taking your wedding because you're choosing to bring it here. But there were other people who were like, sure, it's money, I got to pay the bills. And it was a very, there were a lot of friendships, a lot of business relationships that were tested this year. I remember I've been in the industry for 20 years. These are people that in any industry, people become more than just your colleagues, especially when you've gone on events around the world. You get to know their families very well. You get to travel with them. So if you're already in Ireland, not this year, if you're already in Ireland, you end up traveling all over the world with them, so you get to know them on a very, very friendly basis. And so not everybody felt the same, and sometimes they didn't feel the same from a business level, but sometimes they also just didn't feel the same on a personal level. And so it was a very hard year. One of my best friends from high school is actually a writer for the New York Times. And he called me and he said, I would really like to do an article about weddings in the Midwest because we're not having them in New York at all. And so you're obviously having them. I've seen you post. And I would like to know your opinion. And I said, I don't know that I can do this because I could write the art. I could give you 2 totally different interviews with the exact same questions. And to be fair, I could give you one interview. Christine went away. You should just turn off her camera. I could give you one interview that's like, open up, we need the business. Everyone's out of business if you don't. Weddings are very important. This is our livelihood. Weddings, to give you a little background, weddings were an $83 billion a year business in 2019. So if you shut them all down, think about how many people's lives are dramatically affected. You could do the exact same interview with the exact same question that says you need to keep them closed. They're super spreader events. No one wears their masks. The minute you hand them a drink, that they're incredibly dangerous. If COVID was glitter, I could see it in the air, I would just see COVID everywhere. I did a wedding on this particular date, and by Tuesday, I had 7 phone calls of other weddings that I knew my friends were at, based, colleagues, photographers, planners, or caterers, who said, I got COVID at my wedding. Did you get it yet? It wasn't, do you have it? It was literally yet. And I sent out a blast to the parents of the bride, groom, and all of my professionals and said, contact tracers are calling. I need to know if you've gotten it. And we all literally just waited for our phone call. And somehow, I have no idea how, on that particular weekend, I didn't, but I knew of 7 other weddings on the same weekend where people got it. So how our little wedding bubble didn't get it, I don't know. I don't know if it's because we had nurses on site. I don't know if it's because we took tests at the door, and I will never know. And I don't know why the governor's office didn't call and say, what mitigation plans did you have in place that those 7 other weddings didn't? Why was your wedding somehow safer? Well, because I had nurses, because I required my client to take tests, because I made my client do it. So if you did these things, maybe the other things wouldn't have happened. So I could have given the exact same interview, both 2 very different ways. So I just said, I'm not giving you the interview because I can't, my heart is, I don't know the answer. So I declined the interview completely. And I think Tim understood why, because the interview could have gone and ghastly either way. And I'm a master wedding planner. It's the highest level of planner you can be. There's only 60 in the world. And it could have ruined my career in either way. And I just wasn't going to do it. And that was very difficult because I talked to a few people and they were like, either way you go, one side is going to nail you. Just don't give the interview. And I've known Tim a long time. I've given him sources for lots of articles. And I appreciated he asked me, but I couldn't do it because both ways are right. They're both also terribly wrong. The wedding industry is in such a bad place right now. And my heart is so heavy because both sides are right, if you think about it. So one of the weddings I did during COVID actually was an extraordinarily fantastic wedding. The client called. We only had 8 weeks to plan it. They met right before quarantine hit. They met, to be clear, they met right before quarantine. And because of that, they were like, we are at an age that they're at an age that like either go on the second date or you don't. Like, we're not messing around anymore. So they decided to quarantine together. And they were like, this is it. We're just getting married. So they called me at the end of June. Now, remember, do your calendar here, think about it. Like, we all quarantined in March, end of June. They're like, we're going to get married. Can you do this at Labor Day? Oh, okay. So I had 8 weeks to plan the whole wedding. And I said, I'm happy to do this. I would love to do this for you, with you. Everything is exponentially more expensive because of COVID. Like, I can't ship stuff in, or if I can, shipping costs are through the roof. Like, we all think you can Amazon Prime stuff for free. Some stuff you can, but some stuff, if you actually have to ship it, shipping costs are very, very high right now. I don't know how much you guys are actually shipping beyond your school books, but normal shipping is just very high. Like, they're the only people making money right now, is FedEx. And acrylic. If you want anything with acrylic, it costs a ton because of those sneeze guards. So ironically, her whole wedding was clear. She's like, I love it clear. I want it modern. I'm like, of course you do. The one thing I can't get a hold of is acrylic. And she wanted a very famous musician at her wedding. And I can't call a musician. Like, to book someone like that, you actually have to be an actual agent, like a music agent. And so we reached out to the agent. I had an agent reach out to the agent. I can't make that phone call. You have to actually have gone to like law school to be an agent. So I had an agent reach out to the agent, and they because all concerts were canceled, they were like, yeah, we'll do it. But we'll only do it with certain conditions in place. Like, we have to make sure that person's safe. Because I don't know if you'll remember, but right around this time, actually, a Broadway musician had died from COVID. And so that was really all anybody who famous was talking about, like musicians and actors. They were really concerned about their health. So basically, massive protocols were put in place. And I think for me, that's what made kind of the rest of my weddings more safe, because I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, this is the only way we're doing it, so that everybody can be safe. And so legally and financially, other things happened to ensure safety. But when you own a company, you have to remember your safety, your family's safety, your staff safety, everyone is on the line there. So it took about 2 weeks to build the stage, to bring everything in, to create this event. And everybody, I was pretty clear about this. I wanted everybody to be from Indiana. I knew that our event community was really, really affected. The only people I couldn't necessarily bring in were obviously this performer and her band. But usually you have like a road crew. Like, if I'm using an extreme example, let's say it was the Rolling Stones, they would have specific people brought in. Their crew actually was crying, like they were really emotional, and the roadies were really, really, really emotional. And they were like, I would be off with Maroon 5 all summer, but I'm not, because of COVID. And every single road crew person kept saying that. And they all were supposed to be off with different people. Some were going to be off with country music artists, and some were going to be off with rappers I had never heard of. And they were all off. But once we were almost like the NBA bubble. Once we were on site for the day, we couldn't leave. So we had to order lunch every day, and we would just sit on the deck or out by the water and just eat lunch. So we really got to know each other pretty well. But they all had the same story, that basically, if it wasn't for this one wedding, nobody would be working. And it was really pretty humbling, actually. And the day of the wedding, the groom came outside of his own house and he went out and he got his test and came back in, and he actually yelled at the housekeeper because she hadn't gotten her test. He was like, "No, this is serious. Everybody has to get the test." And yelled at the, like, yelled, you know, at the babysitter to make sure she got hers. So she went outside, got hers, came back in. And he was on his way back in to get from his test, and I was standing by the table, and he's like, let's talk. And he said, like, look at how many people are here. How many are on staff right now? And I said, 210 will be on staff today, which was more than guests. More people were working than guests. And I think astounded him. And I said, yeah, I don't know that you would realize that there's more people working than guests. And that I just kind of, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, because to bring something like that together, you're personally creating an economy that I don't know that you would have realized. And that really means a lot to a lot of people. And that night, the singer, performer, she doesn't really sing actually, she said, this is my only concert all year. It's the only one I have. You have, and then she looked at the couple and she's like, you have lifetime front row passes to any show I ever do. And she said, this is my only concert all year long. And so for that, so she actually played Alleluia. And I got really emotional. Like I had to leave. Like I had to go to the front of the house because it was really making me emotional. That she was saying the same thing that a roadie had said 2 weeks earlier, or that a lighting crew had said to me while we were sharing Jimmy John's. You know, like she had no idea that because they were long gone, you know, they set it up and they had left. They had no contact with her personally. It was the same thing. And that is how hard COVID had hit our industry, music industry, entertainment industry, the event industry. It was all gone. And I had just, I was now a week into the fall semester, and I was about to look at all my students and say like, oh, we're going to go get jobs. And they weren't there. And I just dropped my kid off at college freshman year. And I was like, I have no idea what he's going to go into. He's sitting on Zoom classes trying to learn how to fly rockets and take physics and aerospace. I don't know what to tell him, because it is a weird time. And as a business owner, it is weird. I'm not going to tell you it's not. But the kids I actually feel the worst for are seniors in college, seniors in high school. And by the time college jobs come out, they'll be all right. Like, I'm sorry, they're not going to graduate high school. It sucks. I had a kid not graduate high school. But it's the seniors in college, because I don't know what kind of market you're going into. I really, like, that's who I feel worst for, because I don't know what you're going into in May. But I do believe that we will bounce back, because I know where we came from. The event community was $83 billion strong, which means people love to throw parties, which means people want to celebrate and celebrate enormously and share great joy. And that's only weddings. That isn't mitzvahs, that isn't engagement parties, that isn't anniversary parties, that isn't anything else. That was weddings, one facet of the event community. So think about all the other parties. That is in corporate events, and corporate events spend more than weddings. So when you're all big CEOs, spend the money on the party, because there's a lot of money to be spent there. Lauren, you've heard me in class or like at a guest speaking arrangement, is that right?
Yeah, Professor Schonkweiler brought for Evolve, and I think she had mentioned you speaking, or you had a speech that you did there, correct? With Evolve?
Yep. I was
Yeah.
like on a panel.
Yeah, I think it was students that we're talking to, and I went and watched, and she speaks very highly of you. Professor Schonkweiler
Thank you.
loves bringing you in to talk. So
She's a fabulous and very neat lady, and she is on the corporate and association side, so she plans big conferences and things like that. And she's like, I don't touch weddings. It's a niche, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons I actually think IUPUI does some things better, because they have so many professors who specialize in just one component of their, like, you'll have the teacher is, oh, you want to learn about weddings? Well, this is Monica. You want to learn about sports? Well, this is you'll have that person talking to you specifically.
Mhm.
You want to learn about hotels? Well, let's go have Jen as your teacher. Like, you're talking directly to that person. And I think that is very beneficial as a student. Very, and having done so many college visits, sometimes we're like, oh, adjunct professors, we only use fully accredited professors, blah, 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 or whatever. 90% of our professors are fully accredited. And I'm like, don't undermine an adjunct, because if you are trying to learn about aerospace and your professor actually is an adjunct from NASA, that's actually probably a better person to learn it from. If you are trying to learn about business and the professor actually is, the CFO at Salesforce, that might actually be a better person than a person who's just academic. So there's truly nothing wrong with a adjunct when you look at what their credentials are and why they're teaching that class. There could be a very, very good reason that they've chosen an adjunct, because their day-to-day life and what they're teaching to you is fabulous. And if you're learning accounting from a CFO at a company, probably a great person to learn it from. And so but going through college campus tours, I hear it all the time, like how whatever percentage of our faculty is truly faculty and not an adjunct. I'm like, that's not always a fair assessment. And I actually kind of like how many adjuncts IUPUI is because they make sense, because they're in a downtown area. They can pull all these actually working people to be a very qualified adjunct.
Yeah, I feel that way with Professor Sherman. He seems to know everyone within the sports world. And so someone that's interested in sports, he seems to know everyone. I like bring up their name and he's like, oh, I met them at some conference like 5 years ago. I'll give them your information. I'm like, oh, thank you.
My mentor in life is, obviously because of my degree, is a sports related person. So whenever I would talk, he is now retired, but whenever I would talk about him early in my career, kids are like, oh, are you kidding? I'm like, how would you like to meet him? Yeah, I mean, it is, whenever I would talk about the beloved Ray Compton, people would constantly just float. And yeah, it's, if down in Bloomington, he's not gonna drive, an hour and a half, 2 hours to come speak, or talk on a weekly. But would he have taught at Bloomington in Indy? Probably. He's at the Colts office. It wouldn't be that difficult. So I think sometimes there's some huge benefits to that. Yeah, I see that. I definitely see that. Or like if there's some great PR firm teaching a marketing class, that makes sense. Yeah.
I think I could probably talk for 8 years. So I will go and open it up to anyone else that
Yeah, please, ladies, turn on your camera to ask questions.
Do you have a favorite event that you've done that you can share about?
I'm going to show you a quick video of that one, but my very favorite, actually, people always ask me my favorite wedding, and it is only 34 people, which now is like so common, right? In the small gathering time frame we're in, but it was 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. He was 84 years old. She was 82. It was his first wedding. They met in a nursing home. Her grandson walked her down the aisle, and there's just something so charming about that wedding that it was I'm looking at you on my camera, so I'm sorry if you think I'm looking away, but to you, I'm looking at you. It was very charming to me that after all these years, he never thought he'd find love, and they finally did. And they had dinner at 4 o'clock because to them, that's when they would eat dinner. And that is very charming to me. That was very special. But to have a favorite is, gosh, nearly impossible. Like, there's times I'm like, oh, my favorite all-time client. And my kids are like, you realize you say that about 5 people. Like, there's probably 5 that you have a favorite. And there probably are. There's weddings that are very, very special to me for a few different reasons, because they were incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I loved the challenge, or clients that just have a way of getting to you. A lot of my clients treat me like a family. And I think it's because I only take 10 clients a year, max, max, max. There's one mom until COVID I had lunch with every month. Once a month we would get together, done all of our kids. It's an incredibly famous family, and we do a lot for them, not just the weddings. And they're very special. The first wedding though was a favorite. They were just like, we know who you are, you just do you, and that's pretty high on the list. But yeah, it's not the celebrities, to be honest. There's that always makes me nervous or whatever. No, I think it's that couple. There's just something very uniquely special about this very sweet lady and her teenage son walking her down, and this very sweet old man. People ask me a lot. That's my favorite. But I've done the Castle in Ireland. So when you watch the movie Ever After, if you've ever seen that movie, the final scene is a place called Spivey Castle. I've done a wedding there on Halloween night. Cool place, wasn't my favorite wedding. Like, I've done cool places. I've done a wedding in the Smithsonian. I've done an event in the Smithsonian. That was challenging as can be, because you have to have everything there. You put it on the floor. You completely set up the entire event. You cannot even move a fork. Secret Service comes around, checks everything. They're like, yes, this is exactly perfect. Then you have to take it all away. You literally have to pick up everything, like the table with the forks on it, and hide them before they open the Smithsonian. And then you just have to hide. You can't go anywhere until they close at 5 o'clock, and then you pick it all up and just put it back. So you can actually set up the whole event in like half an hour, but you've set it up from like 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. Does that make sense? So there's some of them logistically that you're like, that is such a cool event. It's a favorite, but it wasn't my favorite. But to do one there with the Star Spangled Banner hanging right behind you, you're like, that's so badass. I love that. But no, not my favorite. So I'm going to quickly show you that video, because I know that we committed to the 6 o'clock end time. But I'll show you that at the very end, because I just want to make sure you guys have no other questions. Nobody else has a question?
I can jump in for you really quick. So this summer I worked for an event venue, and I got to see the inside of it, what it was like working in the office and working kind of from the outside of what you do, planning the actual like setup and stuff like that. What do you think the day of an event is like the most important when you're coordinating with people that you've never really met before? In terms of like the staff that they'll have at the like event venue.
So you mean like from a venue perspective, or if I haven't met them?
From your perspective, because I know sometimes like we would have wedding planners who would come in that they've kind of prepared the whole day in advance, but they're meeting all of these people on the staff that they don't know, and they're trying to form quick relationships with them. What do you think is the most important part of that day to make sure everything goes smoothly to what you've been planning for months?
Did they not know like individual servers?
Yeah, like they knew the people that were working with the venue, but like we had a smaller group of our operations people that were kind of running tasks for them and stuff during the day. Is that something that you would want to implement within, or is that something more specific to probably what we did as in a venue, it seems like?
I can't imagine not knowing somebody.
So you
I
know,
mean, I've been doing this 20 years.
Mhm.
There might be an individual server I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Because maybe, but I would make it a point like there, and usually, like, you know how you have an all staff meeting at the beginning?
Mhm.
I would go up to the caterer and I'd say, what time is your all staff? And they're gonna be like 4:45. I'm like, great, I'll be there. Because I want that caterer to be like, this is Monica. She's the planner. She's been with the client since a year and a half ago or 8 weeks ago in one case, which is an extreme example. Because if I go up to the server from table 23 and I'm like, hey, I need something from you, I want them to be able to actually respect the moment that I'm not just some random girl in a black cocktail dress asking a question. It is incredibly, incredibly unusual that somebody wouldn't know who I was or I wouldn't know them. Because I'm usually working with places I've been to many, 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 many times because I've been around for 20 years. But I'm going to go to all staff in case they had a temp, especially this year. But like, I'll make it a point to go to that. And I may say, hey, I'm Monica, that person over there, I like that event, I had 23 people on staff. So I'm like, I am Monica. I have a lot of people here today. The only people that you will actually take authority from are these three. And I'll like point them out because there's 23 Monicas that day. That's absurd, right? They don't have authority. So I'm like, there's three people that you can take authority from. They're blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we know them. That was it. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. So you just had somebody bossing you around, you had no idea who they were?
No, so we would have, like, we had how you had mentioned that you have like temp workers. We have like a rotating staff within the venues. There's
Yeah,
people
yeah, that makes sense.
together. So you have like rotating people that are working. And so sometimes there would be like, I was in an intern position. And so almost everyone knew me because I worked at all three venues. And so it seems like you make it a point anywhere you go to make sure you know even the people that are only there for the night. Is kind of what I was getting at, that you make it.
Yeah, I mean, COVID made it harder because of masks. Like there might have been people I didn't recognize at first look. But yeah, I made it a point. I had a wedding later in the season that there was somebody in an office that she had never come out until the very end. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And she's like, I was here all night and you didn't know. Because she was working in the office and she had nothing to do with my wedding, but she was like just cranking out, you know what BEOs are? You would know what BEOs are, not everybody on this call would. She was cranking out BEOs for her upcoming wedding and I had no idea she was even there. But when I literally went in to check the Alabama football score, and she like startled me because I didn't know she was there, and I was like, and she's like, it wasn't even here for your wedding. I was just cranking out PEOs. But no, yeah, I make it a point because what if I need something? What if there's an allergic reaction? What if I have to call 911? Like I have no idea. I have to be able to say the person like, hey, so and so, I need help, or somebody threw up and I need a broom, like whatever it is, all those things happen. You know they do. Mm-hmm. Another glass got broken on the dance floor. Where's the broom and mop? Like, all that stuff happens. You need a name. That doesn't make sense to me. That the planner wouldn't do that. Because you're a team. You're not planner versus. It is one. They're on your cabinet. Didn't I just say that? Like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe a temp because they come in late. They come in because temp employees sometimes do. Like, because they're not really, I'm not undermining temps. It's just sometimes they just come in late. Or sometimes there's a language issue. I admit that. And I don't know Spanish. And I don't know kitchen staff sometimes. And they just go straight to the kitchen. But I make it a point to try to know who everybody, at least who they are. And they should know. Yeah. I try. I would hope they try to know who you are. That's the job. That's part of the job.
Yeah, and I think that's good because it shows, especially me, the difference knowing someone who has been in an event world, that I think that that's how it should be. But then coming from your perspective, saying that you go out of your way to meet everyone, is you can definitely tell there's differences even in an area that should be pretty similar because we did mostly weddings. So
It's sometimes it sometimes happens if you're coming from a ceremony to the reception and they're like blowing in and they're like coming at the same time. Does that make sense? They didn't have a lot of time, but it could, I mean, that's when the catering sales manager should have been like, hey, quick, real quick, this is her, this is the planner I was talking about, or him. This is the planner. And the planner should be like, hi, everyone. This ceremony just started. And obviously, because they leave during the ceremony, right? I mean, because they have to get there on time. And they should introduce themselves. Yes, 100%. Yes, that doesn't, yes. Who are my people? Who's my captain? Who's my chief bartender? Like all the main people should already, in that case, maybe not every single server, but at some point in the day, yes, they should. I don't get that. I'm really sorry that wasn't your experience.
no, it's good to know because I think I become so accustomed to what a wedding should look like. And then knowing that if I went to another company, it would be 100% different is good to know that even in an industry
that might not have been, that's equally on your caterer and on the planner. It's on both. I think it's on both sides.
why I
Yeah.
clarifying that.
Yeah, I think it's on both. I mean, I'm kind of a boss, so I'll just be like, what time is your pre-shift? I have to meet your people. But I don't know, I just do it. Because they also know I will boss around their staff nicely. But if I need something, I will tell their staff, I need a broom because so-and-so we just dropped something on the dance floor. That happens every single wedding. Broken glass on the dance floor happens every single wedding. So if I have to bust in the kitchen and find it, I need to know where it is, So but usually their staff knows me because it's been 150 years I've been working with them, So whatever. Or if I'm like, oh, wait, Nellie, this is not correct. They need to know that I wasn't just some random redheaded lady telling them what to do. But that doesn't make sense to me. They should definitely introduce everybody. Otherwise, that's just a bossy lady. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. Yeah, you should get an introduction because one day you're the boss. One day you're the boss, and not very long. That doesn't make sense. Okay, let me, can I share a screen and show you a video?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and if you need to get off because it's 6, I certainly understand. Okay, here we go. It's coming. All it is, if someone else has a question, that's absolutely totally fine. Okay. This is that wedding.
Remember the old Nike phrase, no pain, no gain? Complete and total garbage.
Can you hear
The
it?
only thing that pain brings you is when you know you don't have pain.
And if you have a question during it or whatever, just talk. I'm fine with that.
But I can say, as a neighbor and as a friend, I see a lot of pain. More pain than I wanted to see.
So Michelle, we haven't known each other very long, about 4 years. And the entire time I've known her, I would see her come in every day with a smile on her face, knowing she wasn't happy. Just
today's world is horrible, and what's missing in 2020 is joy, but also true love. It's very hard to find someone to connect and share life.
We have experienced joy, laughter, tears, pain, and support. But you never lost faith in finding your soulmate. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special and exceptional. Your spirit is full of light, and life in your heart is pure. As time went on, I saw far more than just a fun girl with a loving spirit. I saw a woman that wanted to be loved and cherished the same as she does not consume. You are without a doubt the absolute most beautiful bride I've ever seen. I hope you know that you're surrounded by love. I hope you realize just how much I love you standing next to you by your side, watching you start a new chapter in your life.
So we took Al out to appetize the cocktails at Wolfie's one night, and girls are buying shots all over the place. We can't keep them off him. And all of a sudden, he sees beautiful Michelle across the bar, and he goes over. He's like, "I have to."
When Michelle told me that she met someone amazing, that made her feel loved, appreciated, respected, and honored, I knew that she had found her best friend, soulmate. I watched her glow, smile, laugh like I've never seen her laugh before. When she told me that she met this amazing guy, I was like, okay. And just with time and getting to know him and his consistency, and he treats her like the princess she deserves to be, I just want to say thank you.
This is 2020, right? None of us have ever had to do that. You know what there's been a lack of in 2020 in my world? Joy. This is pure joy. This is romance. This is magic. This is mystique, whatever phrase you want to use for a synonym. The two of them are put together. This is pure joy.
I hope you know that you're surrounded by love. I hope that all of the things that you've had to go through have brought you to this, one of the greatest moments of your life.
That woman is 88 years old.
And I just hope you know that you are so deserving.
She can't.
Find the one you love is the best. I've never seen Al happier, enjoying himself, enjoying life. Michelle, you did that. You deserve it.
There have been several moments where I've wondered in the past if anyone could possibly be good enough for you. I have never known anyone that could possibly met until of course now. Al, you're one of a kind, gentle, sweet, selfless, and loving. You have brought so much joy to my baby girl. Need you now. I don't care. I would do anything. I need to talk to you somehow. I need you now. Empty faces. People don't know what to say to me. They're honest answers. They can feel the crushing weight of I know I'm here and I can't change that. I need you now. I don't care.
This is at their home, by the way, if anyone wonders or whatever.
Anything, I need to talk to you somehow. I need you now. I need you now. I don't care how.
everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the wedding of Alec and Michelle. Marriage is a very, very important union between two people. Traditional marriage has been in existence for over 4,000 years. Today, the union of Michelle and Al, not only is it a place for elation and joy, but it also is a situation that impacts many, many people. The fact that you are here today, the fact that you are representing Al and Michelle, means that we all are going to play a part in their happiness and their success for their future. Love is one of those terms that tends to be thrown around somewhat haphazardly, particularly in today's world of 2020. The joy that these two individuals appreciate and display is rare, fantastic, and it really borders on elation, and they are so lucky to have that in their lives right now. You can give without loving, but you can never love without giving. The great acts of love are done by those who are habitually performing small acts of kindness. We pardon to the extent that we love. Love is knowing that even when you are alone, you'll never be lonely. And great happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved. Love for ourselves and even love in spite of ourselves. The future belongs to hearts even more than it does to minds. Love that is the only thing that can occupy and fill eternity. In the infinite, the inexhaustible, and the requisite. Love participates of the soul itself. It is of the same nature, like it, the divine spark. Like it is incorruptible, indivisible, and imperishable.
My beautiful youth, I knew from the moment I laid my eyes on you, something happened. Something magical. Then our journey began halfway around the world. And I knew you were the one. A vow is a promise, a living truth between soulmates, best friends, and lovers. A promise. I promise to show you for the rest of my life how much I love you. I promise to encourage you to follow your dreams. I promise to make you laugh always, even those little noises I make. I promise to hold your hand in good times and bad and put you before all else. And I promise when we get old and gray, we look back at our lives with no regrets. I will always say I love you before you go to sleep. But most of all, I promise to always see you as you see it. That's magical. That's time. I couldn't ask anything more. I love you with all my heart, my soul, from this life to the next. My beautiful
I am Alexander. The journey to where we are today has been nothing less than magic. From your starting out, disastrous surprise planning, it always turns out being even the most beautiful and perfect than we could ever imagine. To the little signs we see and heart into the hands. Thank you for being my guide, my protector, and my best friend. Thank you for your loyalty and for showing me what it's like to be treated like a true queen and to be respected and loved unconditionally. Thank you for everything. So today, on this magical day, as we stand here with our children and our best friends and God, I could say it without a single doubt that I love you, and I love you then, now, and forever. And I'm so ready to become
Now, Christy, take Michelle Gillen, sheriff's wife, in front of these witnesses and promise to stay by her side through sickness and health, going to death. I do. Michelle Gillen, will you take out Christy as the sheriff's husband in front of these witnesses and promise to stay by his side through sickness and in health, joy and sorrow, with death. These wedding rings symbolize never-ending and perfect love. They also symbolize the fact that this is a firm union between the two of you, and that the rings really stay on your fingers no matter where and when. Please repeat after me. I, Al Christie, give you, Michelle Gillen.
I, Al Christie, with you, Michelle Gillen.
This ring is my enduring symbol of love.
This ring is my enduring symbol of love.
You complete me.
You complete.
Michelle, please repeat after me. Michelle Gillen, give you. Michelle Gillen, give you. This ring as a symbol of my enduring love. By the power vested in me by the state of Indiana, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Congratulations. Thank you. Please let me be the first to introduce Alexander and Michelle Christie. You may kiss the bride.
You're here right now, kind of night we dream about. Oh, 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 it's beautiful. Yeah, time flies when you get it right. So hold on tight to me. Love like I never grew up, live like you just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. One blink and it's over. Wake up and we're on tonight. We're kings and queens. Stop, take a breath, close your eyes. Remember this, Love like we never grew up, live like we just get one tonight. We're kings and queens. And it's over. Wake up, we're older tonight. We're kings and queens. And it's over. Wake up, we're older tonight. We're kings and queens.
I kept you guys long. I'm really sorry about that. I should have stopped the questions sooner. My apologies. But that was all planned in 8 weeks. Do you have any final questions or thoughts?
Where was that?
Their backyard, they live on Geist, which is an area of Indianapolis on the northeast side of Indy.
That's what I thought. I was like, other than Geist, I can't think of a lake where that would be like that pretty to have.
Do you guys know what Next Door is? It's a community like engagement where you can be like, I need firewood, I need a babysitter, like whatever. But it also was an area of event. So people were like, where's the fireworks show? And the fireworks show had actually been canceled for the 4th of July and they had not ever rescheduled it. And so he was like, well, they're going to get their Labor Day fireworks show because it took so many barges to do that. And there were people who were angry, like very, very angry because there was no fireworks show. And so they didn't have one. And there were other people who were just so elated that there was a fireworks show because there was indeed a fireworks show. And it was a beauty. It is the same company that does something that's called Thunder, which is over Louisville, and they actually close I-65 and close that entire bridge and do it off that. And it was the same company that does that. So it was a spectacular fireworks show. And once again, the idea that if you're going to bring something to the economy, do it right. So that and the musical artist were the only two from out of state. And the only reason it wasn't the Indiana Fireworks Company was because he's not licensed to do them on barges. So the Nextdoor app, which I am not privy to because I don't live close enough to that zip code to get that Nextdoor, people kept sending me screenshots. And there was this lady, and I was like, I want to go meet Mary, because Mary was like, can we say thank you to Michelle and Alan? And the only reason she knew their names was because she was on her boat and the musician kept talking, like congratulating Michelle and Alan, thanking Michelle and Alan, all that. And she's like, whoever they are in the White House, thank you for making something special this weekend that we could just forget about 2020 and enjoy the fireworks, because it was quite a spectacular show for 20 minutes. And think about all the economy did. There was trucks for 2 weeks and they built that tent for 2 weeks, and all those workers, we knew something was going on. And when those barges came into the water, we aren't dumb. We knew there was going to be a fireworks spectacular. And I'm just so grateful that for 20 minutes, we were all wedding crashers, and they were just so generous and they allowed us to do that. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you coming in. And she just got it, like she understood. She's like, and they must have had obviously hotel revenue and food revenue to feed all of those guests, and obviously to feed all that staff, and what they did to the economy, because obviously the social event and culinary industry is hurting, and she's like, and they had so many police, which we did. She's like, the police presence was unbelievable. And we appreciate that they obviously took great care, and that last firework went off at 10:59. So they were serious about that sound ordinance, and you didn't hear a peep out of them after 10:59. And people were sending me screenshots, and they're like, good girl, Monica, you did your job. And I was like, good girl, Mary, I didn't pay her to put that up. And I sent it to the police because they were obviously given accolades, and I posted it on my Facebook, and I was like, I'm so thankful to this woman who I have no idea. So if any of you know her, tell her thank you. She has no idea. She made my day. She made my year. I love her because she made it as much as Lindsay did for the whole Hallelujah thing. And she was right. That was all true. Every word she said was true. And I actually ultimately showed it to the couple because I was like, look, she was so happy to be your wedding crasher. And like 3 or 4 days later, a maid of honor who, when you asked favorite wedding, it was sort of true because she said, she was a maid of honor at what would probably be one of my favorite weddings. She said, I knew it was your wedding. I knew it. I was on the boat and I thought, oh, this totally has the Monica touch. And she sent me pictures that they had taken from a boat where they watched the fireworks, and they took it looking back. She's like, I wanted you to see a wedding crasher's perspective of that wedding. And then I sent them to the couple, and I was like, this is from a wedding crasher. And she's like, well, they were as close as the police would let them get from the water. And it was cool to see. And she's like, I was a guest at one of your weddings as a maid of honor, and now I was theoretically a guest from the water, and it was just as cool. And that was kind of fun but she's like, I would never have known it was your wedding, other than I kind of just knew. And she's like, I didn't know it until I saw that Facebook post. So that was fun. But yeah, it was cool to see the public's reaction to it, and I knew people who were at restaurants that night, and they were like, it was a good fireworks show. So it was a good one. It was a fun one. But Geist is your answer. So there were people who were like, I live in Geist, or like I told a couple friends who lived out there, and I was like, oh, at this time you might want to go outside and look out. But that was the only secret. I mean, it was under very strict instructions to not tell anyone. But I did tell a couple friends to go outside at a certain time.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It was a fun one. And that one's just very special because of pulling that off in the middle of a pandemic is hard. I'm not when I realized I did make the video. My goal is to never make a video. Like I'm, behind the scenes all the time. And I was like, oh, there I go. But I know what I'm wearing. So I kind of realized there I was. Anybody else have a question? Nobody?
Well, that's all I have. So I'll go ahead and